Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 118 for the 17th of Adar base in a leap year. So there is this poem which started circulating around the internet in the mid-2000s, and it is attributed to an unknown monk in around the 12th century CE. So I have doubts as to if this is the real origin of it. I don't know where the origin of it is, but nevertheless, it is a very deep poem and it relates to what we're going to be learning about today. So I thought that I'd read it to you. It might sound familiar to you. So here we go. This is how it goes. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realized that the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly, I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world. So that's the poem. So it's this simple idea that maybe you have heard before, that instead of focusing on trying to change the world and going and rallying for different causes and stuff, first focus on your family. First focus really on yourself. And then everything else will follow. So today's Tanya really focuses on this idea, but the really profound thing about the Tanya and the approach that the Tanya has is it doesn't even take it as far as the poem does, in the sense that it doesn't say that once you change yourself, this will inevitably lead you to change your family and so forth. It merely stops at change yourself, which really is an amazing idea, because what we're going to be learning in the Tanya today is this idea of how our powers of changing ourselves internally really have an effect on in a cosmic level on the entirety of the world. So yes, it will extend out to our families and to our nations and all that stuff, but not in this like logical way that the poem is kind of describing it. That like, I guess the basic idea that I'm getting from the poem is that if you change yourself, you'll be a nicer person, and this will lead you to act nice to other people, and then other people will act nice in turn, and that kind of thing. So while that might be true, the Tanya is kind of approaching this topic in a much more cosmic way and in a much more spiritual kind of way, in the sense of what we're going to be learning is how changing yourself internally really has a spiritual cosmic effect on the entire world in this really real, authentic way. So let's get into the text to see what I'm talking about here. So the Alter Rebbe says, and again, this is in the middle of chapter 37. It's a long chapter, so we're going to be still focusing on it for quite a number of episodes to come. So the Alter Rebbe says here that it is found that the entire purpose of the days of Mashiach and the revelation of the dead, which is when we reveal the glory of God and his blessed godliness, to eradicate the spirit of impurity from earth. So this is the ultimate purpose of creation, is to reveal God down here and eradicate the spirit of impurity here. This is all dependent on drawing down his godliness and the light of the Ein Sof into the animal soul that is found in the collectivity of Israel, in all of its 248 organs, through keeping all of the 248 positive commandments, as well as to eradicate the spirit of impurity from it through keeping the 365 transgressions of the negative commandments, so that the 365 vessels will not be able to draw their life force, will not be able to suckle from these negative energies. So that's the end of the text. So it's pretty short. So just to sum it up and explain this a little bit more. So what we've learned today is this idea that the whole purpose of creation is to draw godliness down here into this world and to eradicate the spirit of impurity from the world. And now the way that this happens is actually through the Jewish people. So we are really, really, really essential to this plan. And it's through the Jewish people keeping God's Torah, which is made up, the mitzvahs are made up of 248 positive commandments and 365 negative commandments. These two aspects happen. So by keeping the 248 positive commandments, what we do is we draw down godly energy into our souls. And this drawing down of godly energy into our souls causes the drawing down of godly energy, godliness, into the entirety of the world. And through us performing the 365 negative commandments, which means really just refraining from doing the things that we're not supposed to do, this causes like a blockage of the impure energy to come down both into our souls and by extension into the entire world, because the energy, the spirit of impurity can only receive its vitality and energy when it has something to suckle from, when it has these negative forces to suckle from, which receive their vitality from these transgressions, these things that go against the will of God. So when we refrain from doing things that are against the will of God, we block this flow and we don't allow it to happen. So that's how it happens. So it's really amazing. So really going back to our message in the beginning, it really is about starting from the inside in our true and real way. So it's not about going out there and finding the most amazing cause that will save planet Earth from climate change or war or racism or any kind of cause that you can think of, whatever it might be. That's not what's going to change the world. What's really going to change, I mean, maybe it will change the world on some level, because I'm sure anything that we do in a positive way will change something. But if you really want to change the world for real in a cosmic way, you really, really have to not only start with yourself, but continue with yourself and end with yourself. So the focus really needs to be on yourself. The focus needs to be on the inside. And one thing that I'll just add here that I remember learning, and I thought it was a really cool idea. This is not part of today's Tanya per se, but I think it is really relevant. So those of you who are somewhat familiar with Chabad Chasares are probably familiar with the idea of ufaratsta, which literally means, and you shall spread forth. And the way, and this is taken from a pasuk in Torah, where Yaakov, our forefather, is promised by God in a dream that his descendants will spread forth to all corners of the earth. And so the Chabad movement has kind of taken this on as its motto to go out and spread Judaism to the entirety of the world, as we see with different Chabad houses all over the world and things like that. But I actually remember learning in seminary something really cool about this idea, where that nowadays we think of this idea of ufaratsta as like really being in this more overt sense of going out there, doing mitzvos, doing acts of goodness, going out into the world and affecting other people, teaching other people, stuff like that. But originally, I believe it was with the Hasidim of the Mitzel Rebbe, they actually took this in a much more, this phrase of ufaratsta in a much more psychological sense, in a much more internal sense. And what they understood the phrase ufaratsta to mean was that you should spread forth your inner potential, your inner abilities, your inner godly soul, and you should have that spread forth into who you are. So they really understood this idea of ufaratsta as not about going out there and changing the world, as spreading light into the world so much, but more about really focusing on having your inner light spread forth out of who you are and have it shine on the outside of who you are. So I think that kind of sums up what we've learned today. In today's portion, what the focus is really on is that it's really about self. It's really about self-transformation. And when we can really focus on aligning ourselves with God's mitzvahs, then this really will have a cosmic reverberation on the entirety of the world. So that is it for today, and we'll continue tomorrow. I'll speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.